Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. Before we jump in, I want to mention that I'll be attending VidCon this week, so stick around to the end of the video if you want to learn more details. Now, since the reveal of Rise of Iron, Bungie has released a plethora of images both on their own website and to the press. It turns out that these images may be giving us way more juicy details than we might realize. So here are 7 things that we've learned from these images. Number 1 is the new Cosmodrome. We are all excited to have access to new Cosmodrome spaces like the Plaguelands, the Wall, and Fellwinter Peak, but it seems like the changes don't end there. We can see here in these recently released screenshots that it looks like the other areas in the Cosmodrome that we know and love are getting a bit of a facelift. It looks like winter has come in a big bad way, as the entire landscape has been covered in thick snow and icicles. We can also see that the environment has been cut up quite a bit by the Devil Splicers, which I think served really well to foreshadow what we'll be encountering in this expansion. So far the screenshots we have are from the Rocket Yard, the Divide, and the Blast areas. So it remains to be seen whether or not we'll be getting updated versions of the rest of the Cosmodrome, or just the ones closest to the Wall. And speaking of the Wall, we can see a nice shot of the broken section of the wall from the Divide. I think it's going to be really cool to revisit a space we're so familiar with, only to see it having undergone such a radical change. I'm really interested to see what this means for the currently playable space as far as the kinds of enemies we can expect, and maybe even brand new public events. Number 2 is new Trials gear. It looks like we're finally getting a true new set of Trials of Osiris gear with the Rise of Iron. There's a new dark blue and gold motif which I'm really digging, and the new sleeker design is definitely a nice change. So far only the Hunter gear is shown, and it definitely doesn't disappoint. I think my favorite part is the little cat ears on the cloak hood. I hope that this added attention to Trials of Osiris translates to more interesting things in the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is supposed to be this prestigious place where you're supposed to feel like the ultimate badass, and with it so desolate it doesn't necessarily come off that way. I would love to see something like a special vendor maybe selling you very unique and rare items. Number 3 is becoming an Iron Lord. During the Bungie reveal stream for Rise of Iron, we were told that we could become an Iron Lord. Well, it seems like this might be more than just a catchy marketing line. During several E3 interviews, we learned that we would perform rituals that would graduate us to the status of Iron Lord. We also learned that the new social space, Fellwinter Peak, would feature new vendors, and that the main temple area would play a huge role in the Rise of Iron endgame. So what insane trials and rituals will we undergo to attain the status of Iron Lord? It remains to be seen. But you can bet that this amazing looking set of armor has something to do with it. I just can't wait to feast my eyes on the Titan version of this armor. Number 4 is new faction gear. We got some screenshots of Ghosts and Sparrows with the new Monarchy designs and color schemes, so it looks like you'll finally be able to be fully decked out in faction gear from head to toe. This might also imply that we might expect some new faction quests with this expansion. If Rise of Iron is even half the size of Taken King, we can expect to see lots of auxiliary quests that aren't necessarily tied to the main storyline. I just hope these items have perks to match, like maybe increased glimmer gains when defeating a guardian from another faction. That could be the first steps into the faction wars, which is Bungie's original vision for the Crucible. Number 5 is new vendor weapons. As customary with every new expansion, it looks like we're getting a true refresh to the Tower faction, Crucible, and Vanguard vendors. In the April update, we got a stat reroll, which was nice, but in Rise of Iron, it looks like we're getting a true refresh with all new weapons. It's crazy to think that in year 1 we went through 3 sets of vendor weapons, but only 1 set in year 2, so it's definitely about time for new guns. Here we can see a new Future War Cult scout rifle, and here it is in-game. Next we have the new Vanguard shotgun, and here is what looks to be the new Vanguard Fusion, although I'm not so sure because the V logo isn't as obviously noticeable on this gun. Now here's a ghost with a very curious skin, featuring a grayish tannish base with a camo pattern. Now this could simply be a random rare blue ghost, but I actually think that this is the new theme for the Crucible weapons and gear, moving away from the current Seattle Seahawks bright green and blue. But unfortunately we don't see any weapons with this paint job on any of the screenshots, so we'll just have to wait and see. Number 6 is new foundries. In the Taken King we got an expansion to the Foundry Weapons. We got sets of weapons from Amalon, Haka, and Suros. Each foundry featured a unique design language and unique playstyles. In my previous video on the new weapon ideas, I discussed that Nadir should be one of the foundries that are explored further. And it looks like in these screenshots we're getting just that. It looks like in Rise of Iron we're getting at least one new foundry, Nadir. And I have to say that the design language for Nadir is absolutely incredible. And as I mentioned in that video, I believe that Nadir's weapons will be some of the most tactically versatile in the game, inviting you back more often to the weapon upgrade screen to change out the perks to best suit the activity. Now this is just absolute speculation based on Nadir's lore, so we'll have to wait and see, but this design definitely lends itself to that ideal. Finally, number 7 is the axe. One of the coolest additions to the gameplay of Rise of Iron is this badass flaming axe that will spawn in certain missions and public events, allowing us to wreak absolute havoc on our enemies. Now we all assume we'll be getting some standard swinging attacks, but it looks like these screenshots show us some pretty cool other special abilities as well. The first is what looks to be a Fist of Havoc style slam. It looks like you'll be able to slam down your axe from mid-air, potentially causing an epic area of effect damage attack. We've also seen a curiously large number of screenshots showing a Guardian kneeling down with the axe. Now this could simply be the animation for picking up the axe or for charging it up somehow, but I actually think that it's producing some sort of flame shield, protecting Guardians within and dishing out damage over time to enemies who dare get too close. Either way, I really hope this axe finds its way somehow into the Crucible, as we keep getting hints at possible new Crucible game modes and features. Now as a bonus item, I thought I'd throw in this image. Nothing seems out of place until you begin to deconstruct it. The image shows the infamous giant servitor structure we've seen in many screenshots and in the trailer. In fact, it looks like this may be the final encounter to an important story mission, or perhaps the new strike, as you fight a nasty Ultra named the Machinist. However, if you take a closer look at this image, you don't see 1 or even 3 Guardians, you see 6. There are 6 Guardians making their way towards this structure. So what activity is this a screenshot from exactly? My fantasy answer is that it's a 6-man patrol. The current gen console exclusivity might just make this more possible now, as we know there is a limit to how many players can occupy a single specific bubble due to legacy console hardware restrictions. Now my reality check answer is that this might just be the entrance to the raid, borrowing the setting from the strike. My guess is that with the pace and urgency that these Guardians are sprinting towards this thing, that it's actually the way we get to the top of the wall to face our first raid challenge. And before I go, as I mentioned at the top of this video, I'll be attending VidCon this weekend, June 23rd through 25th in Anaheim, California. I'd love to meet any of you who happen to be attending, so follow me on Twitter @FutureFoe and give me a shout out during the show. I'm also going to be helping out a good friend of mine, Roberto Hoyos, the creator of Throwboy, at his booth on the show floor. Throwboy is an awesome brand of pillows that is famous for those plush emojis that you've been seeing around the internet. I'll leave more specific information on that in the description below. So be sure to stop by the booth, give us all a high five, and pick up a fun plush pillow if you feel so inclined. Now I know I'll be doing everything in my power to secure an awesome poop emoji, because how can you resist that cheeky grin? Anyways, drop a like if you can, subscribe for more Destiny content, and I will see you all next time. I was most anxious to check out the increased damage to Golden Gun during this week's Nightfall, especially since there's Solar Burn. And what are the results? Well,